It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. From Fantatrax TV, this is Good Morning Tatooine!
Good morning, Tatooine. Welcome to the live stream. You've maybe noticed this past week, a lot of the Fantatrax crew are running wild at New York Comic Con, so get your eyes on our social media at Fantatrax. But the news doesn't stop, and we've got a full show tonight. So let me tell you what we've got coming up. First up, we're going to be looking at the High Republic Phase 2 launch trailer. Adria Arjona has been talking Andor. We'll be checking that out. The Star Wars actors have been discussing performing in ILM's Volume. We'll be discussing the impact Volume's had on Star Wars TV. Tales of the Jedi, the new animation, has got a poster, and we'll be checking that out ahead of the program's release later this month. And as I mentioned, New York Comic Con, we've had a panel on the New Republic and a panel from Lucasfilm Publishing, and we'll be checking out all the news that's been coming out of New York Comic Con. And joining me to discuss that and much, much more, Becca Benjamin. How are you, Becca?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm a little jealous of Mark, running amok in New York City and
I know.
catching all the High Republic stuff.
I'm amazed you still let him into the country.
Right? But, people misinterpret. I mean, I'm in Western New York, so I'm in upstate. I'm only like 20 minutes, 30 minutes from Canada. So I'm 8 hours drive from New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's probably about the distance from between me and Mark in the UK. So I know that the joys of ever having to make that kind of journey. So no New York Comic Con
geographically challenged.
Yeah, no New York Comic Con for you this year, but lots of news coming out of the show we'll have a chance to discuss. And I'm sure you'll be discussing it on upcoming Tarkin's Top Shelves as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's get stuck straight into the first news item, which was the High Republic Phase 2 has kind of landed. We've got a launch trailer, which I can play in the background whilst we discuss it. The High Republic, how have you found it as a publishing program?
Actually, I think you're playing Tales of the Jedi, but that's okay.
I'm playing the wrong thing. Oh dear. Let's stop that. Let's find the right one. Have I downloaded? Here's the thing. Have I downloaded the right one? Here we go. Here's now going to be the challenge. Can I find it under pressure or not? Tell me anyway, whilst I struggle to find this.
Yeah. I have finished Path of Deceit, which is the introduction installment for Phase 2, Wave 1 of Phase 2, obviously. I am about halfway through Quest for the Hidden City, and then obviously Convergence is supposed to follow that. It's interesting. I personally like where they're taking this now because it's 150 years, give or take, before where we are in the High Republic from Phase 1, which means we're about 350 years out before the prequels.
Yeah.
So I love this clean slate because there's so much freedom there, You don't really have to follow what's already come before that we've already seen. So this is a nice territory for them. I find it extremely fascinating. I love the fact that we're getting all these different facets of those that believe in the Force, whether you're Force sensitive or not. And I think that's an awesome way to do it because obviously, for the first 6 films, we only knew of the Jedi that
Yeah.
believed in the Force or that could use the Force, whatnot. And then, we get introduced to it slowly with Lor San Tekka. That, Church of the Force comes up in The Force Awakens. We're all like, what's that? Kind of like when you hear Obi-Wan talk about the dark times, the Clone War. It's like this one-liner, and you're like, you're waiting for more. So we're starting to get that now. When they first announced the High Republic, my first, hope was that maybe sometime through this, we'll actually get to know how the Jedi statues on Jeddah have fallen.
Yeah.
What were they like when they were once standing erect and everyone would go and worship this? So we get the hints that this is where it's going. We're going to see Jeddah at a time that we didn't see before, unlike what we get to see in Rogue One. So I'm excited because, like I said, fresh territory. This is amazing. I mean, it's still familiar, but it's far enough removed
Yeah.
where it's all new. It's great.
I think when it comes to sort of Star Wars publishing, I've always kind of enjoyed where there's a strong connection between things. So I enjoyed the X-Wing books that kind of flowed together. Tim Zahn's works that all kind of flow together through the character of Thrawn. And I even kind of enjoyed the New Jedi Order stuff. I know there's a lot of weaknesses and criticism on that books as well. But I liked the whole concept of trying to bring a bunch of writers together and create a narrative that kind of fit and work together. Because I thought a lot of the weak parts of Star Wars publishing can sometimes be the standalone novels that just, don't really fit in anywhere. So I was kind of excited about the High Republic. I'll admit I'm behind on it. And I do find sometimes I get a little bit lost in who the characters are, just because it's an entirely new cast. And so I've still got that kind of learning curve to go through and get caught up on it. But I kind of share this idea. I like that they're going backwards again, almost doing a prequel series to it, because it gives us all a chance to, one, get caught up on phase 1, but 2, start afresh on phase 2 and start seeing what elements start linking together. And I guess come phase 3, it's going to be like the sequel trilogy. We're going to get a payoff of some description. It's going to link everything together. So I'm excited about where it goes.
Oh yeah, it's exciting. And I think what's going to help, how you were saying, how you get confused with certain characters, Kristen Baver, she's doing, the art concept book for the high, and that's in November. So that'll definitely help with descripting and who these characters are and worlds and that not. And I think that's going to be great. I think that's a wonderful idea. Really hoping obviously they've done that for, live action series animation. So I'm hoping we'll get that for Andor as well. Fingers crossed.
I hope so.
One could help.
But yeah, I think that's the kind of book that's going to sit well on my coffee table. I'll reach for it every now and again whilst I try to, who was this character again and where did they come from? I get a little bit of that backstory. I kind of need that little bit of an encyclopedia there to help me out if I'm not reading it constantly all the time. So, and I'm playing catch up a little bit. So yeah, I'll look forward to that. The other strong part is what a great team they brought together as well, and they've built upon that team as well as it's gone on. So it's good to see them all still involved, and they're all going to see it through all 3 phases. On Father Tracks TV from New York Comic Con, we had Mark and Matt that are out there had a brief conversation with Claudia Gray, and she was talking about that she's working on content for 2024, 2025. So they're all can't talk about it, what it is, but the content's coming, and they're all hugely committed, and a huge commitment to their sort of writing lives to become part of this project.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I know they're expanding the architects. And I think, George Mann, first of all, I was very excited that they brought him into this because he has done some awesome stuff with, the myth and fables. And now we're seeing that being reworked into becoming canon. And I'm excited. Like I said, they really couldn't have picked better people to join. I mean, Tessa, from what we see in Path of Deceit, she's I mean, I just want to put it out there. Cav is not the only one ripping hearts out. So the women are just as guilty. So, but yeah, I mean, it's really, again, I enjoy the clean slate. Like I said, it's familiar enough that you're in Star Wars. And there's little hints and little nuggets that connect. But I like having this fresh world, that it's going to all play out with what happens and why the Jedi Order is the way it is when we see it in the prequels. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally. Let's head to the next news article, and we've got. Let's get rid of that. Technology this week is failing me. There we go. Andor's coming out every week on Disney at the moment. We're just we're just at the halfway stage of it. And Adria Arjona has been talking about her contribution to it, the fact that she got quite overwhelmed being on the set, and she kind of had to park those feelings and really focus on her role. And I really enjoyed her in the first few episodes, and I'm looking forward to her coming back into the series. But I haven't had a chance to speak to you too much about Andor before, so I just wondered what your take is on the series and overall.
So far, I mean, I'm all about it. I love seeing this murky, muddled world that we've heard so much about, and we never really get to see that murkiness. I mean, it's there, but now we're really diving into it. And no matter where you are in the grand scheme of things, nobody is perfect. Nobody is 100% right. Um, it's just a very difficult, sad, oppressed time. And it's interesting to see where you know, if you're there, obviously, thank God we're not living in that type of a galaxy, right? Not, I mean, not fully, thank the Lord. But you see how your morals can become so gray,
Yeah.
and you know, and how you can have your heart and your emotions completely lead you. And sometimes it's not really leading you down the right way. So, but I'm loving it. It's funny because I had this conversation with my son who is now 20. And I've asked him, I go, when are you going to watch Andor? He's like, yeah, sorry, Mom, not really into it. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, Cassian, he's already dead. I'm like, okay, well, you've watched Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Anakin and Obi-Wan in the timeline now are gone. He goes, well, that's different. I go, how so? He goes, because Star Wars is about Anakin. George said so. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to let him do his thing. And eventually, hopefully he'll tune into it. Because I feel that this is something I think all wanted when George used to hint about writing about the underworld and things like that, and the underground part of Coruscant, because you're seeing real people dealing with what's going on. And I think that's the interesting part of it, because no matter who you are, there's someone that you see yourself in. Yeah. And I think that's the brilliant part of it. And I love the fact that, especially with 5, this past episode, Tony's really digging into the family dynamic, whether it's biological or whether it's found. And trust is a big issue, and support is a big issue. And you see it in 3 different ways and in 3 different type of family dynamics. And it's all dysfunctional. It's all disgruntled. And it's like, yeah, this I can relate to, and I think it's just brilliant. I think it's being done wonderfully. It's well written. The dialogue is fabulous. So yeah, I'm loving it.
My theory is that I think that the older generation of Star Wars fans are enjoying it a lot more, because we're probably been more worn down by the world a little bit more and can relate a little bit more than maybe the younger generation can. They haven't quite had the life experience that you kind of feel that Andor's kind of retelling, I've enjoyed it. I'm getting a little bit frustrated by the sort of slow burn of it. I kind of had this conversation with someone else that it feels like it should be 4 sort of TV movies, and that might appeal to me a little bit more. But I think it's going to be a lot more watchable once the series is done, and you can go back and enjoy it a lot more than maybe some of the other Star Wars TV content. But yeah, I'm enjoying actually seeing, and because we haven't really seen it that much, the family dynamics in live action. Even Silas, I'm kind of on the knife with him because it seems so obvious that he's going to go down the bad path of being an Imperial, but I now have this really strong theory that he's going to end up a rebel because he's just so disillusioned with the world that everyone's telling him what to do, and I just think he's going to rebel.
The worst one for him is his mother.
Yeah.
I mean, I cringe during that, how she's coddling over him, over his breakfast needs, but at the same time, she's degrading him left and right. And in our real world, I'm like, woman, don't you realize that's what turns people into serial killers? Knock it off. I mean, it's horrific watching her. I mean, it's beautifully done, but you see this, it's like she's really not helping at all. Yeah, it's sad. He obviously didn't have a positive childhood. I'm going to go with that.
Yeah. And this coming week's episode looks like it's going to be one of the episodes that's going to pay off quite dramatically. I think we're going to get the attack on the Imperial base and possibly this much alluded to party of Mon Mothmas as well. And I think we might get really stuck into the political aspect of Star Wars, which I'm actually looking forward to quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, those that have read Claudia Gray's Leia, Princess to Alderaan, will know that that book takes place about a year after this season that's going on right now, because it's right when Leia's about 16. So there's this moment, and I'm hoping we're going to get it on screen, speaking of political, is when Queen Bria has a dinner party at their castle on Alderaan, and Tarkin just shows up uninvited.
Yeah.
And he's getting the hint that something's going on behind the backs of the Empire, and it has to do with Bail and Mon Mothma and other senators. So Queen Bria just acts like she's completely just drunk and accuses Bail of having an affair with Mon, just to get his, get him off the trail. And I'm like, this is fantastic, because just think of that. It's interesting. It's all about appearances when you're in the political world. So yeah, I think it's, like I said, I would love to see something like that play out on screen. I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Keeping in mind too, that's also how Leia finds out about Crate. So just saying.
Yeah, that's very true. One aspect of Andor that's been much discussed is the fact that it uses real world locations and built sets rather than ILM's Stagecraft volume. And at the time that they were shooting Andor in the UK, which was a really long shoot, a lot of complications caused by COVID and so on, they were actually building a volume in the UK. So I think a lot of people assumed they're building it to serve Andor, and really I think beyond maybe one or two scenes we're not really going to get that. And of course, this past week, ILM put out a video with actors talking about their experience working on Stagecraft, and hugely positive, because it's given them something to act against. And in terms of the TV shows that have come before Andor, it's given them the chance to visit worlds and locations that just wouldn't have been available or affordable for a TV project. So there's a balance, I think, between the two in terms of real locations and Stagecraft. I just wondered what your thoughts were on Stagecraft as a tool that's aided Star Wars TV production.
I personally think the volume's great. Especially, and it's great to hear from all the actors, but someone like Ewan and Hayden, who have worked on blue screens and green screens and had to just imagine things were there. And when they were a lot younger, and that was something so new to them. And to hear them talk about how wonderful it is now that they don't have to imagine that, it's just there. Yeah. And, I think they're right. I think the acting comes across, more authentic, more genuine. And I think it's great. And I mean, again, I don't think it should all be value. I think it should be mixed in. Obviously, if you can't get to where you want to be to film, this is a handy tool to use. And it's so realistic. I think if I were to walk on that and to see it, I think I'd be overwhelmed. Just as I would be to go and be on set and see something that they've actually used with practical. I mean, all of it, I would want to touch everything. So that would be a problem. But, I just think it needs to be a good balance. I think, you can't just completely do away with practical because there's something, it's part of what Star Wars is, that's how it began. I think it's part of the formula. So I think it's important to keep that around and for the future as well.
I think especially as well, when you introduce a new tool, there's this eagerness to use it. And perhaps maybe there's some criticism being labelled at them. And I think in part maybe fair, overused at times. And I think that's kind of cycling back a little bit where it's now like, this is a tool we've got in our armory that we can use. But let's not forget that we can go to real world locations. And even on the last series, The Mandalorian, which used the volume heavily, they were on locations in California as well. So I think we're starting to get that balance of sets, real world locations and the volume, and I think that can only benefit.
Oh, I agree. I mean, there's just some things you can't replicate without the volume, without it. I mean, you have to kind of use it. I mean, you can't be in space, you know what I mean? You just can't. And you can't replicate certain planets by something that's here on Earth. So I think, like I said, I think there's its use for it, and I think it's brilliant. And I mean, maintaining balance is always key. So we'll see what happens.
Definitely. Something a lot easier controlled on a computer, Star Wars animation. And we've got a new animation coming out October 26th. Tales of the Jedi, which I think didn't get a huge announcement. It was announced in a kind of odd way at Celebration, but I think it's got a huge reaction from the fan base. I think everyone seems to be really excited. We're going to get to see Ahsoka and Count Dooku in his younger years, and I think everyone's pretty excited for this. And so we got the poster this past week. First of all, what did you think of the poster, and are you excited for the show?
I think the poster is fabulous, but then again, I think most of the poster art that comes out, even the book covers, I think it's just phenomenal how they can portray a feeling, through this. And I just think it's great to see Dooku and Ahsoka back to back like that, front and center. And personally, I like seeing anything with Ahsoka front and center, because here's a character that came at us. And for the most of the fandom, we're all like, wait a minute, what? And within a year or two, we just started to adore her. And that's grown. I mean, she is in her own right, probably one of the best, well-known and admired characters throughout all of Star Wars. And she started in animation. I'm excited for this. But then again, it's Ahsoka, it's Dave Filoni's art. And I got to see this panel in a weird way. I mean, I didn't win the lottery for it. Anne Convery was just sweet enough to find me. And we both, by the way, just suck at navigating and directions. So don't ever tell us to meet you guys anywhere, because we suck. But anyway, when she finally found me, she had a VIP ticket, and I got to sit with her in VIP seating and watch her reactions as she watched my reactions to what Dave was talking about, and watching the first episode that they got to show us. And I can't put a price tag on that. It was just amazing. And I'm excited because the animation, from where it began to where it is now, it blows my mind. Like, you can see every blade of grass and the way it moves, and blows your mind, just blows your mind. I mean, and I'm sorry, I don't care what people are saying online, but baby Ahsoka is going to give Grogu a run for his money. Just saying. So.
And I think what's great about it is, when the Clone Wars first started so many years ago now, makes us all feel old. The animation on that was at such a high level. That show was running at a loss. It just wasn't financially viable. If it hadn't been a George Lucas back project, it just wouldn't have happened on any TV channel. And it was kind of because he's pushed that envelope so hard, and at that time, it's that form of animation, that type of animation, and the processes and what's involved in it, which were next level at the time, and really the tutelage that he gave everybody and how this is the way that animation is going to evolve. We're now getting this, and they can do like a 6-part series, which is financially viable to go out on a streaming service, which is quite incredible, really.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I'm glad to see that this is always his love, is the animation, and he's just not stopping. And I think that's great because there's still so many stories to be told. I mean, we see it even with this coming out. You can do Tales of, blank. You can do anything. It doesn't have to be Tales of the Jedi. It can be anything. And I think this could become, like you said, this could become like an ongoing series of other segments within Star Wars. And I think that would be just fantastic. And, I think it's great that what they're going to give us is stuff we would have probably never have gotten otherwise if he didn't pursue it, and I think it's great. I mean, knowing now that just that little glimpse of seeing Ahsoka robed and walking behind the funeral procession of Padme, knowing that she was there, like, again, we're just going to get our hearts ripped out, but that's Star Wars. We're invested in these characters. And yeah, you do become emotional, whether it's animation or whether it's live action. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And as we kind of mentioned at the start of the show, the big thing happening this week has been New York Comic Con, and so much publishing news coming out of it. So let's try and get through as much of it as we possibly can. All started on the Saturday with the High Republic panel, and we got a lot of new covers, so maybe a lot of news we already knew about, but we're starting to get the first reveals from that. So Lydia Kang, I can't even say the word, Cataclysm, is going to be coming out in April next year, just in time for Celebration. And we get to see the cover featuring Axel Greylark, the Chancellor's son, with a blaster and a lightsaber. Your thoughts on this cover?
Oh, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I love the use of color that we're getting. And can I just say that they're really nailing the art. They're like raising the bar for these book covers. I mean, it's phenomenal. I mean, really, honestly, the last beautiful book cover that we got was Beth Revis with Princess and the Scoundrel. Like, that one really blew my mind because of the color palette. Again, the use of these, bold purples, and they're very spiritual, which I think is great because, this is a time where, the Jedi are so different with what they believe in, and how, how they feel about attachments and whatnot isn't as strict as it is when we get to the prequels. It's more spiritual based. You're allowed to really embrace your feelings. And I think that's great. And the colors show that. And obviously he's not a Jedi. I believe that lightsaber that he's holding belongs to the Jedi we get on the cover of Convergence. Okay. So we'll find out why he's got those. And I'm very curious to see, what's going on in this time frame of where we are in the timeline. So yeah, looks great.
Next up was for middle grade, Quest for Planet X by Tessa Grattan. And this is kind of one of the things I love about the High Republic, is that the fact that they're catering to different age groups. And so everyone can get involved in it. Whether you're a novel fan, an adult, whether you like comics, middle grade and so on. They're really invested heavily into this publishing program to make it all encompassing.
Oh, absolutely. And I really don't think people should skip on these, because my experience has been that these middle grade novels, or, the Disney ones versus the Del Rey, I think the Disney really gets into the heart and the motivations of the characters. And I personally enjoy following the teenagers than the adults, because the adults are already like myself, they're cynical, so the kids are still learning and figuring out who they are going to be and what direction they want to go. So they're still experiencing life. And I think that's what makes it that much more interesting, and almost like you're hanging on the edge of your seat waiting to see which way they're going to go, because let's face it, they're kids, they're indecisive, so you don't know. But like I said, when you get the adults, they're pretty much straightforward on who they are. They don't kind of turn from that. So these are always, for me, the most fun to read.
Yeah. And this one's going to be set on Batuu, Galaxy's Edge to this as well. And just another plug for Fantatrax TV. from New York Comic Con. Ethan Sachs and Will Sliney were interviewed as well, so they were the creative team behind the comic series. Here's another plug thrown in there. Next, we've kind of already mentioned him, the Harbinger of Death, Cavan Scott in the High Republic, and another ominous book. I think a lot of people have been having a little bit of fun with the fact that it's so ominous looking cover, and Cavan's back in charge. Has he been given the task of more bad news for us? But you've already hinted that he's not the only one with deceit just out there as well. So poor Cavan getting a lot of stick.
Yeah, no, no. And, this cover is absolutely gorgeous. As ominous as it is, it's absolutely gorgeous. Like, again, the artwork, and this is Marta Rowe. And I absolutely enjoy this character. I am, again, young person. So I'm very curious to see where she goes, because she is kind of like a teeter-totter. You're not really sure which way she's going to go. So as ominous as this cover is, don't kind of get married to one way or the other with where she is, because she's very interesting. I'm going to leave it at that. And this cover, I'm telling you, I mean, he raises the bar here with this. I mean, it's a whole new leveler on its own.
And that's coming out in May next year, so we may just hear a little bit more from Cavan at Celebration next year as to what we can expect from it. Next up, we head into comics. Marvel artist Aro Anindito has been sharing some of his final pages, but also the pencils, which I love seeing, just to contrast, for the issue 1 of the High Republic series, which comes out this coming week, in fact, October the 12th. So we can look forward to that. Always great art in the High Republic series so far, and with the new issue 1 coming, excited to see what that series brings.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at this. It's again, it's a comic. I mean, this is fantastic. Yeah. And you're right. The High Republic art just seems to blow everything else out of the water. And I'm not really sure if it's because they're paying attention more to detail, because we don't really have a visual to go on, only stuff like this. The other series, we know Vader, we know those characters, this is different. So I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it. They're really trying to paint that picture for us. I mean, which is great. So Acolyte has a lot to, go off of, right?
Yeah.
All those beautiful concepts.
Definitely. I think part of it as well is there was such a huge investment in this publishing program before it launched as well. And probably the first time we've really seen that kind of coordinated effort behind a Star Wars publishing program. I think they've attained such high levels out of the starting blocks that everybody involved in the project now doesn't want to let that go. Everyone's so driven to deliver great stories, great art, and I think there's a real buzz behind it, both amongst the creative and the fans.
Absolutely. I mean, I love seeing people do their cosplays of something that's only been done in books. And I think it's just fantastic to see. And what I like is that for the most part, what I've been seeing with the audience that's following this is young. They're young.
Yeah.
And I think that's great, because let's face it, in the world that they live in now, reading isn't something that people, as in picking up a book, everything is online. To see these young people with actual books and, things like that. Like I said, my youngest is 20. Him having to write his name in cursive is obsolete now. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting to see that. And I'm happy, very, very happy. Bigger audience.
And we still get the chance to have a little bit of fun with it being comic books. The Twinkle Sisters,
yay!
Which is just look fantastic. And I want to see 2 people cosplaying in April next year.
Yes.
As that would be incredible.
Look at that. That is fantastic. And this is obviously coming out for phase 2. Yes. Okay.
Yes,
See, I didn't get a chance to look at all the comic stuff yet. I was more interested in the books. My bad. But this is great. They have such a good time with this.
I know. I think the last of the comics coming up here, This is for the Blade issue 4 and for Star Wars High Republic issue 5. So we're a little bit further down the line. A couple of the cover arts there. And moving swiftly on, we're back into some of the books, I think it is.
Love this.
Yeah. High Republic Yoda and the Younglings arrive in October next year. But yeah, what fun art gone into that is, again, you know, it's there's like a really nice line of books coming, all with this same kind of art form, which I'm kind of loving.
Is the art going to be by Katie Cook? It looks like her.
It does look
No?
like her.
Yes? Yeah.
I don't think they
Oh,
announced who that is, but it definitely looks like her.
It does. But this is going to be written with Charles Soule and his daughter, correct?
Yes. Yep.
That's fantastic. I love it. Bring the family into it. That is
Absolutely.
great.
And I lied. We do have more comic. We got more. Claudia Ray's doing a 30-page one-shot comic coming from Dark Horse in February next year. The High Republic Quest of the Jedi. Spinning on straight from that back into the books. Oh, it's not. It's another comic. It's Viz. They're coming back to doing a manga comic with Daniel Jose Older.
Oh, the Edge of Valance, yeah.
Yep. That's coming out May next year as well. And we'll end the High Republic news with a book that I think everyone will be excited for, a young adult anthology. All the writers, whether it's novels or comics, are all coming together to do this anthology, which is fantastic. And we're going to get that next summer. And it's going to connect us into Phase 3, which is quite exciting. It feels odd just being at the start of Phase 2 and we're already talking about heading into Phase 3.
Well, yeah, because they're probably already working on that stuff. So they're already out of Phase 2. They're into Phase 3, possibly Phase 4. That's fantastic. And I love the anthology stories. There's just something so grand and fun about those, you know, and you get to really go in and, you know, dot your I's, cross your T's, and really connect things. And I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a little bit, I always take the anthologies, if you get connected to Star Wars TV, it's kind of a little bit like Andor. It gives them a chance to get really in depth into a particular character, and maybe a character you wouldn't normally get a chance to learn a little bit more about. Always good fun. The publishing panels continued with stories from a galaxy far, far away just today, in fact. And we got loads of book news coming out of that. The big one is Miss Dawson's Rise of the Red Blade novel, Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade, is going to be coming out next year. I think a lot of people will be quite excited about this because the Inquisitor is a huge part of Star Wars animation, and we brought them into the TV and Obi-Wan. And but really a group of characters that people still want to know more about.
I'm excited for this. Absolutely. When I saw this, first of all, I'm just happy to see her back in Star Wars writing. So I'm thrilled because I think she's always done such an excellent job. And like you said, you know, having some backstory on those characters, I think Deborah Chow did an excellent job by giving us different backstories with Riva. And I think this novel will be great to give us other backstories on how they became to be, you know, on this side of the fence, basically. And I just think that's going to be great.
Yeah. I'm getting mixed up in my slides here, so let me move on to the next one. Sana Staros, who obviously a comic creation by Marvel, has now graduated to get her own series, which I think a lot of people will argue has been long overdue. And Justina Ireland's going to be penning that, and it's coming out really soon. It's going to come out in February 23, so this is a one we can look forward to early in the new year.
Yeah, this is, you know, I'm just so excited to see these characters get highlighted. It's about time, as you said. I mean, she really is, she's been worthy of this for a couple years now. I mean, honestly, I'm just glad to see her finally, you know, have her own headline. You know, she's going to be showcased. It's going to be great because she's done some amazing things. She's, you know, we've seen her offset with Lando. We've seen her, you know, offset with Afra, Han Solo. So this will be great.
Yeah. We also got a whole bunch of cover reveals for Star Wars Revelations. It's coming out, which is kind of going to be a sort of linchpin between this year and next year, and kind of laying out where Star Wars comics is going ahead. Peach Momoka got my favourite cover there of Dr. Aphra. Just love that cover. But yeah, a lot of stuff coming there. And we also got a little look ahead at some of the Valance covers, Dr. Aphra 29 as well.
Awesome.
There Han Solo and Chewbacca issue 9, which is the second to last cover for that series. It finishes at issue 10. And back onto the book side of things, the High Republic Chronicles of the Jedi, an upcoming in-universe guide. We've got our first look at this. Cole Horton's going to be penning this one as well. And again, just look at the High Republic again, and the level of detail in the artwork. It's stunning.
Look at the fathiers. Oh my gosh. Everything is just amazing. Again, this art just really, it just blows my mind. I mean, personally, I would like some of this framed and on a wall, you know, it's that good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Next up was the Lightsaber Collection. It's coming in April so 23. And I just love the fact that it's not a Anakin and it's not a Luke lightsaber they've decided to focus on for the cover. And I actually enjoy the kind of things that they've done in this kind of series before, so I'm looking forward to picking up this one.
Yeah, no, and again, they're more extravagant. You know, again, these Jedi in this era are allowed to express themselves, their individuality. You don't get that in the prequels. Everyone is pretty much, you know, the same.
Yeah.
You know, no one gets a gold star for standing out in class. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's a no-go. But here in this era, yes, you do. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. Beautiful.
And next is Star Wars 100 Objects, which was a BBC sort of radio program. Was 100 Objects? It was kind of things in there. So I don't know who's picked that up on, or whether it was broadcast in America as well. But Kristen Baver's kind of got Star Wars 100 Objects, and this one that they've picked out here for the show was Yoda's kind of musical instrument, which I had absolutely no idea about before I saw this coming out of the panel at New York. So that makes me really excited for the book, because there's going to be so much in there that you think you're a Star Wars fan, but I just, you know, how much have I missed?
Oh, absolutely. We talked with Kristen about this for the Podathon. Lucasfilm let us, you know, ask certain questions and things like that. This is going to be just awesome, just amazing what she was able to bring into this. Of course, she wanted more, but she at least got to pick 100. So yeah, I mean, I can't stress this enough. Pick this book up. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And last book to cover for the show, Star Wars Timelines, which
I can't wait.
It's going to be so chock-a-block full of information, and I love having these kind of reference kind of books that you can dip into. And
yeah, it helps with your articles, doesn't it?
It does tremendously. It helps tremendously, because I go, and especially I use Twitter reasonably regular, and I go in there, and I'm always overwhelmed by some people's intricate knowledge of certain characters and certain events, and I'm like, yeah, I never made that connections at all, and it's just on the tip of their tongue. And so I love these kind of things, because I need something to refer back to. I remember something enough for an exam and then immediately forget it. That was always my trick. So I've got no retention for information on the kind of deal that some people are. So this is the kind of thing that will remain on my coffee table.
Absolutely. Yeah. And not to mention, now we have so much more Star Wars than we had back in 2005. So you know what I'm saying? So yeah. There's a lot more content to try and think, when did this happen? Who's that? What world is that? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel particularly sorry for the people in Story Group that had to assist on this book. You can imagine the pressure on them when you get a book like this, so chock-a-block of information, and especially when you try and timeline things in Star Wars. I always think there's two things in Star Wars you should never touch. There's the timelines and a galaxy map.
Right? No.
You've got to be brave if you're going to touch either one of these. So I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, it is.
And that exhaustive list was all the publishing news that came out in New York. If you had to pick one thing and one thing only that you were allowed to pick up and the rest you had to leave on the bookshelf, is there anything out of all of those that would be top of your list?
Yeah, Kevin Scott's book.
Yeah.
Path of Vengeance. Yeah, there's just, I'm intrigued. Path of Deceit, knowing that character is going to be in other things and we're going to follow her and her story, that's exciting. Because like I said, that's really going to paint the path, no pun, to find out what's really driving Marchion Ro. So I'm excited.
I'll go with the Inquisitor novel, purely because I'm not a huge Star Wars animation fan. I kind of avoided all that. Animation's not my thing, full stop. So a lot of the characters born out of animation, I've got a reasonable idea of their storylines, but not an in-depth thing. So my real first main introduction to the Inquisitors was through Obi-Wan, and I was kind of confused with a lot of the criticism they got, because I quite enjoyed their part in the show. So
good.
I'm going to pick up this novel and get stuck into it and learn a little bit more about the Inquisitors. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've got a lot on the way. I mean, it's incredible. I don't remember getting this many books so quickly. I mean, every time I finish one, there's another one, and then there's another one, and they pile up along with the comics, trying to keep everything, in order. Then you get all these new series. I mean, I'm missing the Bad Batch, but again, we have Andor, and that's going to overlap now when Tales comes out. You know what I'm saying? So we've got a lot to, digest over the next couple months before we get into the new year. It's crazy.
And we got a little break with Willow as well at the end of November.
Yes.
So I'm actually incredibly looking forward to Willow, and it's going to offer something completely different, because I think we've become so ingrained, like the House of Dragon, Rings of Power as being what fantasy's about. I think Willow's going to offer something completely different and be just a really, I'm going to say a Saturday afternoon family kind of TV show, if you know what I mean. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So. Yeah,
and I recently, I want to say it was about a year ago, I sat down and I watched the original Willow, and I had my my daughter, who's 22, watch, and she's like, "When did this come out?" And I was trying to tell her, she's like, "Wow, it actually really holds up, Mom." So I was happy to hear that, because that's fresh eyes, and she got into it. So that's good to see, that these young kids could go back and watch some of the things that were done in the 80s and be like, wowed, that's kind of cool. So.
That is us wrapped up all of this week's news. Quite a lot in there to digest. I wasn't expecting as much publishing news out in New York. I was kind of thought, the schedule seems pretty full. What more can they give us? But they always have that little extra something in there for us, I think. And I think that might be the end of the publishing announcements, and maybe for a little while, maybe this calendar year. Give us a chance to digest what's coming, I think, and they'll normally maybe hit us with some new stuff at the start of the year.
Oh yeah. But I kind of had a feeling they were going to announce some things, because there were so many authors, taking pictures of themselves all together. I'm like, okay, something's coming.
Yeah.
So I'm actually very pleased. Like I said, there's some things that I did not expect. So I'm very happy to see where they're going with our literature. So it's nice. They need to keep that going. And I'm excited for Tales. So see how that goes.
Brilliant. Appreciate you joining me this week to chew over all the week's news. I'll be back on Thursday night with our Andor review show with Mr. Paul Naylor. Episode 6, high expectations for it, so hopefully they don't let us down this week. And beyond that, I'll be back next Sunday with another recap of the week's news, and we'll see what the week to come brings. So Becca, thank you again for joining me, and everyone in the comments, appreciate you joining the show live, and we'll see you all again during the week.
Bye, thanks for having me.
Keep up to date with the latest Star Wars news each and every day on FanthaTracks.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and Pinterest at FanthaTracks. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow Fantha Tracks TV to be alerted to new content and to be a part of our live shows.